The Assyrian Empire occupies a central place in ancient history not only for its military power and conquests, but also for its sophisticated economic system and vast trade networks. Between the 9th and 7th centuries before the Common Era, this empire emerged along the banks of the Tigris River in northern Mesopotamia. It was shaped not only by swords and armies, but by clay tablets, silver ingots, and trade routes stretching thousands of kilometers. This empire was built as much by merchants as by soldiers. Trade records, contracts, loans, and long-distance exchange networks were as important as warfare. This study examines the complex structure of the Assyrian economy, its trade mechanisms, its social organization, and the early traces of concepts that would later define modern economic systems. The rise of Assyrian civilization was closely connected to geography. The capital city, Ashur, located on the fertile banks of the Tigris River, stood on a natural trade corridor. From this position, Assyria acted as a bridge between Babylonia to the south, Anatolia to the west, Iran to the east, and the Caucasus to the north. During the early Assyrian period, approximately from 2000 to 1750 before the Common Era, especially in the Old Assyrian trade colony period, Assyrian merchants established extensive trade networks reaching deep into Anatolia. These networks laid the foundations for Assyria's later imperial economy. The transformation of Assyria from a kingdom into an empire began in the 9th century before the Common Era. Powerful rulers such as Ashur-nasir-pal II, who ruled from 883 to 859 before the Common Era, and Shalmaneser III, who ruled from 858 to 824 before the Common Era, modernized the army and pursued systematic conquest policies. Yet behind these military successes stood a strong economic infrastructure. Without this organized economy, long-distance trade, taxation, and redistribution system, the Assyrian Empire could not have survived for centuries. In the Assyrian economy, where coinage had not yet been invented, precious metals formed the foundation of trade. Silver was the primary medium of exchange. It appeared as ingots, rings, wires, and standardized pieces of specific weights. Gold was rarer and reserved for luxury purposes, while copper was used in lower-value transactions or during shortages of silver. Assyrians developed advanced methods to test the purity of metals. Merchants carried testing stones and scratched metals across their surfaces, comparing colors to assess quality. This practice allowed for a reliable and standardized value system. One of the most remarkable features of Assyrian trade was its standardized system of weights and measures. The basic unit was the shekel, weighing approximately 8.33 grams. 60 shekels equaled 1 mina, which weighed roughly 500 grams. 60 minas made 1 talent, weighing about 30 kilograms. These standards increased trust across regions. Merchants carried standardized weights with them, ensuring consistent values in every market. The Kultepe tablets frequently record exchanges such as 1 mina of silver for a fixed quantity of tin, demonstrating the practical use of this system. Kultepe, near modern Kayseri, and known in antiquity as Kanish, provides the most important evidence for understanding the Assyrian economy. Approximately 23,000 clay tablets discovered there belong to the Old Assyrian trade colony period, roughly from 1950 to 1750 before the Common Era. These tablets document not only commercial transactions, but also family relations, social networks, legal disputes, and everyday life. They are written in cuneiform and often sealed inside clay envelopes. Important documents were protected in this way to prevent tampering, an early form of document security. The tablets fall into several categories. These include debt notes and credit agreements, commercial contracts, letters between merchants and their families, court records, and tax and customs documents. Many tablets record loans, such as 10 shekels of silver, to be repaid within 1 year, with 2 shekels of interest. One of the most important features of the Assyrian trade system was the establishment of commercial colonies in foreign lands. These colonies were called karam, meaning harbor or trading hub. The largest of these was Kanish, which coordinated other colonies across Anatolia. Smaller stations were known as wabartum. Karams were semi-autonomous. They had their own administrators, courts, and internal regulations. They managed relations with local rulers, organized customs payments, resolved disputes among merchants, stored goods, and maintained communication networks. Assyrian merchants traveled to Anatolia using two main routes. One route passed eastward through modern Diyarbakir and Malatya toward Kayseri. The other route ran westward through northern Syria and Cilicia into central Anatolia. Trade caravans often consisted of 200 to 300 donkeys and could transport up to 100 tons of goods. Security along these routes was ensured through agreements with local rulers. Assyrian trade was bi-directional. From Mesopotamia to Anatolia flowed textiles and tin. From Anatolia to Mesopotamia came silver, gold, copper, and precious stones. Tin was one of the most strategic resources of the Assyrian economy. Mesopotamia had no tin deposits, so it had to be imported from distant regions, likely from Central Asia or modern Afghanistan. When alloyed with copper, tin produced bronze, essential for weapons, tools, and ornaments. Kultepe tablets frequently record tin prices. Typically, 1 mina of silver could purchase 40 to 60 minas of tin. These ratios fluctuated based on supply and demand. Tin was so vital that Assyrian kings occasionally attempted to control or monopolize its trade. Textiles were the other major Assyrian export. High-quality wool and advanced weaving techniques made Assyrian textiles famous. Fine fabrics known as kutanu were especially prized. Textile production took place largely within households. Women wove fabrics at home while men handled long-distance trade. Many tablets contained letters in which merchants instruct their wives to produce specific textiles for export. One of the most strikingly modern aspects of the Assyrian economy was its advanced credit and interest system. Complex financial transactions existed as early as the beginning of the second millennium before the Common Era. Interest rates typically hovered around 20% annually. Tablets often state that a loan of 10 shekels of silver would require repayment of 12 shekels after 1 year. Interest was usually calculated using simple interest rather than compound interest. Loans could be secured or unsecured. Collateral included property, slaves, valuables, or even family members. Partnership agreements known as narukum allowed multiple investors to pool capital and finance long-distance trade expeditions, sharing profits and risks. Trade was deeply embedded in Assyrian social structure. Merchants held high social status and often maintained close ties to the palace. Merchant families operated across multiple cities, maintaining branches, correspondence, and accounting records. Women played a significant economic role. They acted as independent traders, agents, weavers, and investors. Letters written by women showed direct involvement in financial decisions and household management. Slavery was also part of the economic system. Slaves came from war captivity, debt bondage, or birth. They worked in agriculture, construction, mining, and households. Despite their status, slaves could own property, bring legal cases, and sometimes buy their freedom. Urban trade depended on a strong agricultural base. Wheat, barley, sesame, flax, and vegetables were cultivated using advanced irrigation systems. Iron plow tips and crop rotation improved productivity. Animal husbandry supplied wool, milk, meat, leather, and transport power. Sheep and goats were especially important for textile production. The empire relied on a complex taxation system. Tribute from conquered lands, labor obligations, customs duties, and special levies funded the state. Temples functioned as economic institutions, managing land, labor, storage, and credit. Economic motivations drove Assyrian expansion. Conquests secured access to metals, timber, fertile land, and labor. Annual records list enormous quantities of tribute and resources brought back to the imperial core. Forced population transfers reduced rebellion and supplied labor but created long-term instability. Over time, over-centralization, heavy taxation, land concentration, inflation, foreign rivals, nomadic invasions, and climate stress weakened the system. The fall of the city of Ashur in 614 before the Common Era and the capture of Nineveh in 612. Before the Common Era marked the end of Assyrian political dominance. However, some trade networks continued in reduced form. Assyria's economic legacy shaped later civilizations. Babylonian, Persian, Greek, and Roman systems inherited Assyrian standards of weights, taxation, contracts, and administration. Though remembered for military brutality, Assyria's most lasting contribution was the organization of economic life. Standardization, written contracts, long-distance trust, and institutional memory formed the foundation of later global trade. When we read the Kultepe tablets, we do not merely see an ancient economy. We witness the birth of the modern economic mindset. The algorithms of stock markets and the complexity of international trade agreements trace back to a simple idea written in clay along the Tigris River.